Hello, and thank you for joining us today. Before we dive into things, I'm going to kick us off with a quick introduction. So the topic of our meetup today is Big Data and AI in Finance. We're joined by Fawad, Zain, and Durav. So who is Data IQ for? Data IQ is for analytics leaders, data scientists, data engineers, data analysts, basically anyone across the enterprise, as our goal is to democratize data science. And we currently have 300 plus customers globally. So as an extension of our mission to democratize data science, we began our meetup series globally, where we host speakers from great companies like the ones that you see on the screen, as well as the companies that we are hosting today, RBC, ATB Financial, and Scotiabank. And meetups are one of the many ways that we try to build out the data science community. So we also have the Data IQ Lab, where we partner with businesses and researchers to take on impactful AI projects that explore automation and augmentation of business roles. We also have our annual EGG conference in New York, SF, London, and Paris, where we bring together individuals from all industries and roles and to discuss what a data-driven company looks like. We also provide free licenses and resources for academics, researchers, and anyone that is interested in personal learning. We also host a podcast called the Banana Data Podcast, where we simplify complex AI topics and cover everything from the latest and greatest in AI to interviews with experts in the data science field. And you can subscribe and listen wherever you listen to podcasts. We also have our Data Science Pioneers documentary, where we investigate the future of data science with global data professionals. And if you're interested, you can schedule a screening at datascience.movie. Today we have Fawad. He is the Senior Manager Data Scientist at RBC. Durav, he is the Data Science Manager at ATB Financial. Zain, he is the Data Science Manager at Scotiabank, that is a typo. And Brian Parks, he will be our moderator, and he is the data scientist at Data IQ. And lastly, if you're interested in Data IQ DSS, you can explore it for yourself and download a full and unlimited free trial at dataiq.com/DSS. So I'm going to hop off now and let our moderator, Brian, join us. So thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome.
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. So it sounds like Chloe did a quick intro. Have we done any introductions of you guys yet?
We have not.
Okay, awesome. All right, so let's get to that. So I just wanted to know, I just wanted you one at a time just to tell us about your backgrounds, give us a kind of sense of your career journey, and along that career journey, how you ended up at your respective companies.
I can start.
Sounds great.
There's one. So my name is Fawad Youssef. I am a data scientist in RBC. I work in risk modeling. I've been with RBC for 2.5 years now. Prior to RBC, I actually worked as a data scientist in a completely different field. It was healthcare, specifically cancer research. And my journey into data science was a bit interesting because it started with an undergrad degree in science, And during my 4th year of undergrad, I took a computational course, and I fell in love with that course, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. However, I didn't really have a lot of background in programming. So I took a certificate in informatics, and that's where I learned the programming. And then at the same time, I realized that statistics was very important in informatics and data analysis. So I took a master's in biostatistics from UFT after that. And it was really when I worked in healthcare and cancer research that I put all these pieces together to kind of start the whole data science journey. So there I used to develop models to assess the risk that cancer patients will get their cancer would relapse, or what kind of treatments would work well with some of these patients. And after working for so many years in healthcare, I really wanted to challenge myself and apply these data science skills to something that was completely different from what I've done. And I thought finance and banking specifically would be a great field to transfer to, considering that it's one of the fields that has a lot of data to work with. So that's how I ended up in my current position.
Awesome. Thank you for that rundown. Super helpful. Whoever would like to go next, feel free.
Yeah, I can go next. So my journey was like a bit different. I was like a computer science undergraduate. So once I completed my undergrad in computer science, I worked as a software developer and a web developer for a few years. And then when I moved into my master's, it was then for the first time I was exposed to like data. My master's was related to like soft computing, rough sets, fuzzy sets, and that was the first time I got exposed to like huge data sets. And then when I moved into my PhD, and my PhD is again in machine learning, soft computing, it was then that I started working on like bigger projects that involved like this big data, sort of the notion, which was like quite new, like about a decade back. So that was when I fell in love with data. And together with that, I was working in the academia as well, like as part of like a PhD student. I had to work in academia. So over in the academia, I had a chance of working with real projects across like different industries in a like academic environment. So that was like the next thing that I loved. And and then after completing my PhD, I moved to Canada and landed onto this job at Scotiabank. So this is like, I've been at Scotiabank for about 4 years now, and it's my first job in Canada, and I'm loving it. I'm working at like the customer insights and analytics group. So our basic mandate is to work with customers data and improve customer experience, basically, like use different sort of like techniques, machine learning, analytics, and all those kinds of like cool things to make the experience of the customer better and to like recommend better things to the customer. That's what I've been doing, and I love it.
Awesome. Yeah, it definitely sounds like you're passionate about it. It's always nice to be in a setting that you love working in. So I'm going to do something I probably should have done in the beginning, give a quick intro of myself. While we wait, I think our last presenter is having just a couple issues staying signed on. I think there's some glitch going on. But for the meantime, just to give him some extra time, I'll go into my background a little bit. So I am a data scientist here at Dataiku. I am based in Denver, Colorado. I actually, my educational background is finance originally. And then I sort of pivoted from there towards data science. So while I have a bachelor's in finance, I switched to data science and have a master's also from a school of informatics. So I then kind of took that. I had a couple of data analyst jobs, and I knew that I wanted to continue down that path, and actually got into banking. Kind of fell into it because I was a finance major and also had the data science chops, right? So sort of as I was finishing up school, that perfectly aligned, launched right into banking, where I spent a short time in banking with sort of a middle market bank, doing anti-money laundering and fraud detection type work, which was very interesting to me. I hadn't been in that setting at all before, but that is sort of why I'm happy to be talking to you guys today. You've spent some time in that sector, and definitely interested, as are our participants, in how that's going for you. So with that, I will ask our last presenter, Dhruv, if you want to give us a quick intro, just kind of how you got to where you are and your journey along the way in data science. Might still be having issues. Let me take a second and follow up and make sure nobody's having issues here. Okay, so I think we're going to get our last presenter to dial in so that we can do a quick intro. So let's just give a minute or so. We'll try not to spend too much time on it, then we can get right into our questions. Okay, I think what we'll do while we wait is we'll just get into our general questions. And hopefully he'll join at some point during this discussion. But yeah, the way we wanted to do this is just ask some sort of general questions up front. Try to spur a little bit of a discussion, and then if time allows, we have a couple slightly more technical questions. Nothing serious or anything that we may dive into for whoever would like to participate there. And then, of course, we'll do a round of Q&A.
Makes sense.
All right. All right. So first question I wanted to ask the panel here is, how is data science revolutionizing the financial services industry? In your eyes, just what you've seen or what you would expect to see? Because it's obviously a very old, I guess a lot of times a very old school industry or profession, and data science has been working its way into it. And I'd love to hear your take on just how data science is actually revolutionizing that.
I can start.
Sure.
Great.
Okay, cool. So yeah, if you ask me, data scientist, data science is probably made for banking and finance. Because data science basically needs data. Data is the blood that you require, for data science. And banking and finance sector has so much data, and that has been it has always been a treasure trove of data. And it's only lately, during the past few decades, or in fact past few years, I should say, that data is actually getting used, and people are able to get insights out of the data. And this is the reason why data science, although it is having an impact in literally all the fields out there, but I would strongly say that banking and finance is one of the top fields that are being revolutionized, and you are seeing the results like every day. So from like fraud detection to like personalized messaging to risk analytics, like how the customer data is being managed, how you are going out to customers with more relevant offers, more timely offers, with nudges, with all those kinds of information that are very relevant to the customer. Similarly, like if you think about things like algorithmic trading, so there is so much, and there are so many areas which are being revolutionized within this sector. So that's my take on it. So yeah, and we are not at the end. This is evolving, and this will continue to evolve. I was recently reading somewhere that by 2025 we expect to have like 175 zettabytes of data. So if I say that in easier terms, that 175 billion terabytes. So just imagine the volume that we are talking of, right? And it's not possible. It's not possible to analyze that kind of data without like strong machines added. So that's like a good match that data science has found in the banking and finance.
Thank you. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Fuad, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I agree. I think finance and a lot of industries in general, they're being revolutionized right now in the sense that they're really digitizing a lot of their platforms. So banks, for example, clients don't need to go to a bank to apply for a specific product, for a credit card or mortgage. Things can be done from the comfort of their home, through their iPhone, through their iPads. And that, in a sense, from the customer or the client perspective, it is very convenient, it's very accessible. From the banking perspective, it means that there's going to be a lot of data. There is a lot of data, and it's the size of the data, the types of data that the banks are getting. And the challenge here is to take all that data and try to learn as much as possible from these transactions, to learn about the client, and use that learning to offer a product that is so tailored for the client's needs. So I think that's definitely, to do that, you definitely need data science and machine learning hand in hand. Those are very essential components in that equation.
Thanks. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm hearing a lot. I'm hearing a lot about personalizing and customizing offers for people, and obviously that's a huge part of data science, and it's awesome to see it's so applicable to banking, right? Because everybody is banking one way or another. So definitely some benefit there. So I'm just going to make sure Dhruv is on. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Had some technical difficulties, but ended up just switching computers. Unfortunately, that means I don't have a camera, but yeah, at least you guys can hear me now.
Awesome. Sorry about the difficulties.
So all good.
So we just, I just kind of posed a general question, but before I repeat the question, maybe get some input from you. I'd love to hear just an introduction of yourself and your journey getting to where you are in your profession.
For sure, yeah. So I studied financial engineering at the University of Toronto. And after that, I actually worked at a social media analytics company out of Toronto called Sysomos in their R&D team. And over there, the main thing that I worked on was a sentiment engine. This was right around the time when RNNs and CNNs were really picking up steam. And so what we ended up building was a CNN that analyzed Twitter data and basically spit out the sentiment. And we used emojis as the labels to actually train the model. And basically the point of the model was to label all of the tweets that didn't have emojis using tweets that had emojis as the reference points. After that, I went into management consulting and I worked at Deloitte. Over there, I helped mainly oil and gas companies out of Alberta focus on automation and how AI could help them automate their processes, particularly in the finance domain. And from there, I moved into an R&D team as a data scientist at ATB focusing primarily on retail financial services. So, similar to what has been brought up so far by Zain and Fuad, like customer insights, churn detection, anomaly detection for fraud, same type of stuff.
Awesome. Thank you for that introduction. That's super helpful. Yeah, sorry you were having technical difficulties. I'm glad it sounds like you were able to hear a little bit about it, at least. So yeah, I guess I will pose the question again if you'd like to add anything in that regard. So we were just talking about how is data science revolutionizing the finance industry? Maybe it be certain parts of the finance industry or certain sectors of banking or certain teams maybe it's benefiting. What are your thoughts around that as far as actually revolutionizing the industry?
Yeah, so I thought that Zain gave a really complete answer, to be honest. Maybe one thing that I would add is that in finance, not only do we have access to a ton of data that we can use to draw insights, we also have a lot of levers that we can modify in very precise ways. And we can also use that to look at the impact that those have. So we almost have an inbuilt way of doing A/B testing as we create new products and deploy them. And so we not only have the ability to analyze data, but actually generate it as well to the needs that, to analyze the problem in the way that we want to.
Gotcha. No, that makes a lot of sense. The overarching themes here being lots and lots of data that banking has access to, all those transactions, all those customers, certainly lends well to data science. So thank you for that. So I think we'll move on to our next question. And it's sort of related. I think it kind of overlaps with the last question a little bit. But essentially, I'd like to know in your eyes why you need to use data science in the financial industry, right? We're all data scientists here, and you happen to be in the financial industry, which means you believe that it has a place in the financial industry. So I'd like to hear from you why it's absolutely necessary for banks to use it, whether it be a competitive advantage or anything else. I'm just curious to hear that. And feel free, whoever wants to go first or not contribute at all, that's fine as well, to jump in.
Yeah, I would continue on to what Durav was pointing out by saying that I think competitive advantage is something that's really important, because we are in the world of open banking now, although it hasn't really started in the West as much as in other parts of the world. But when Facebooks of the world and Amazons of the world, they get into banking, you need to have let the bases covered, all the bases covered. And if you're not using machine learning, if you're not using data science, if you're not right at the top of your top of the mark, then it would be difficult to compare with these tech organizations. So that's the one of the most important things. And as I mentioned before, with so much data, you need to cope up with the speed with which the data is being generated. So that would be my observation.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I see this, of course, across industries, right? If you're part of a company who's not utilizing data science, or at least thinking about it, you're in danger of falling behind, especially at this point in time. Dhruv or Fuad, do you want to contribute there?
Yeah, sure, I can go. I definitely agree with the competitiveness. And one component of that is really the customer satisfaction. So I'll provide an example from my kind of work. I work in risk modeling. So what we do is we develop models to adjudicate products. Now, the process of adjudication, manual adjudication, is a long process. You either call on the phone or you go to a bank. You go through a series of questions. So it is a hassle of a process, and also getting back to you with the answer might take a few days. So by using AI and machine learning, we're really compressing that time, making it so convenient for clients to apply and get an answer instantaneously through these models. So definitely enhances the client's experience, and that's just within my team. So many different applications, from fraud detection to forecasting to RBC Ventures to capital markets. You can count it. Every single team within the bank has probably some sort of data science project that is going on at the moment. So it's definitely needed.
Sure. Yeah.
And to round it out, I would say that it's actually becoming even more core than just being a competitive advantage. It's just a competitive neutral, basically, at this point. I don't think there's any bank that isn't using data science. And as Zain said, the amount of data that needs to be processed, it's not physically possible for it to be done manually anymore. And it's not even physically possible to use a rules-based system anymore for something like fraud detection, right? Where you're trying to generate rules as new types of fraud are being created, but new types of fraud are being created by algorithms as well. And so if you have a person looking at all of those new fraud cases and taking 3 months, to come up with a solution for why for a new rule that can be written to catch that particular case, that's 3 months of fraud that you're not able to stop. So the momentum is just too fast. You can't live without it anymore.
Sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I'll echo that same sentiment with rule-based systems. I definitely had a little experience with that while I was in banking. And it's a very cumbersome process and not very, not very iterative, right? There's a lot of time between iterations when working on something like that. Awesome. Thanks for all your thoughts there. It makes a lot of sense. Sounds like, from competitive advantage to customer, sort of a customer experience, data science is super important across the board. So on that note, I sort of want to do a 180 and talk about some challenges that you may face in the compliance heavy field of banking. So we've got some people on listening to us today who are, undoubtedly they're either in banking or maybe thinking about going into banking. And I'd love to hear your point of view on just some challenges that you have faced or anticipate facing in a field such as banking, where there's a lot of compliance and sort of laws braced around it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can actually start for this one. I have a kind of a good story. So ATB, in moving to the cloud, decided to go with Google Cloud Platform as their cloud partner of choice. And Google Cloud is really great, but it has one very significant limitation, which is until very recently, it had no data centers in Canada. And it's actually not allowed to store data outside of Canada, financial data. And so what Google actually ended up doing for ATB is opening a new data center in Montreal. It took a few months, but yeah, basically, we wanted to go with Google Cloud, but we just couldn't move forward because of that blocker. And fortunately, they were actually willing to open up a data center for us specifically to meet all of the compliance.
That's pretty incredible. That's one way to get things done, I guess, to build your own data center.
Yeah,
that's pretty remarkable. Anything you'd like to contribute there, Zain or Drew?
Yeah, I can talk about like a totally different issue. So as we are building like classifiers, for example, we are building models, and whenever like the models where we are doing like education or like credit-based decisioning, we need to make sure that like the data that we are using, it doesn't have like biases and then privacy things. So for example, like I was working on a like model recently, and like age was one component of it. It has been one component of it in the past, but now like we are very strict on like not using like things like gender, for example, things like race, ethnicity, and all those things. It's like a clear-cut thing that you are not allowed to use any of those things, and age also falls into that category now. So I had to like redo like a model that was built in the past when this condition wasn't there, but now you just can't use it. So you have to think about like newer data sources. You have to compensate this limitation and these rules by like flowing in additional data sources to make sure that the model is learning the appropriate functions and appropriate behaviors, and that the predictions are in line with the baselines that have been set in the past.
I'd like to add to Zain's point. I think we kind of work on similar things in terms of building models to assess risk. So our team is also highly regulated, and even my previous field was healthcare, and that was highly regulated as well. So I'm kind of used to this, but I do have an appreciation for people that work in regulation, just because, like Zain mentioned, it's really another pair of eyes or another line of defense where they can actually make sure that there is no bias in the data, that the models are
exactly
thought of perfectly. So it's great in that sense, but it does come with challenges. And when it comes to challenges, I think of a few challenges. One of them is the time it takes to build a model. So in a highly regulated environment, the process of model development might take a bit longer compared to other industries that are not as regulated. And when that happens, you have to keep in mind that there might be a gap between the time that you build the data set from the time that you deploy the data set. So things to keep in mind when you're monitoring the model. Another challenge is documentation. So as a data scientist, you walk into the field thinking all you're going to do is model development, but there's a lot more than just model development. Documentations, making sure that your code is properly annotated, very clearly written, the process is very clearly explained, is so crucial, because at any point, if regulation comes in check or if there's any inspection, it will make life a lot easier if everything is properly annotated. And the third one is a challenge, but it's a good challenge, I would say, is the fact that you have to have, as a data scientist, a very good understanding of how your models work, and you should be ready to kind of challenge validation or regulation by having a thorough understanding of where your features are coming from, how they're engineered, and even the basics of your model development process.
For sure. And one more thing to add, maybe on this front, is it's actually not enough for a model to not have a particular variable and that be a way to eliminate bias. So I think quite a famous example of this is when Apple launched their credit card, and it turned out to be biased against women, but they said that they weren't using gender as a feature. But what ended up happening is that a collection of other features essentially together acted as a proxy that consistently biased it against women. So one example of such a feature that we have in our data set is primary versus secondary account holders. There is definitely a bias of the fact that secondary account holders are more likely to be women and primary account holders are more likely to be men. And so if you just remove the gender feature, you haven't removed the core bias. And I think that that's actually what ended up happening in Apple's case as well. And so so ATB actually has an ethics in AI team that what they basically do is they take models that have been created and they pass them through a series of tests that you may have followed all of the regulations and compliance and still end up with a biased model. And so we have a separate team basically that specifically goes in and checks what are the key components that we are checking for bias against, and do we have bias in those components? And then maybe what's a little bit more of a complicated question, is that bias justifiable? Because sometimes it is, you are allowed to be biased in certain cases, right? So it's not just always about eliminating bias. It's about understanding why it's there and understanding if it is justifiable from a compliance perspective or not.
Absolutely. Thank you for evaluating on that. That's something that's super important. It's awesome to hear that you guys have a team dedicated to that. I know here at Dataiku, we have data science specifically focused on we call it responsible AI or responsible machine learning, where we check that sort of thing, right? We're looking at subpopulation analysis to make sure, even though we may have followed all the rules, there's still obviously, like you said, could be that proxy issue where we still have a biased model because some other variables accounted for what we eliminated. So that's awesome to hear. I think it's a great point. And then Fuad, I think you hit the nail on the head. I was going to ask a follow-up question about sort of how you, I guess, how would you describe the process from, building a model and deploying a model in a compliance heavy field? Because I've seen that firsthand being a little bit cumbersome. And as well as the documentation, right? I have experience in banking a little bit, but a lot more experience in like the startup world where it's not as important to be heavily documenting everything and have a process for that sort of thing. But in banking, I have always found that to be pretty fascinating. It can be hard if you're not used to it, and it sounds like you are. But it's nice to hear that you also see that as sort of one of the more challenging aspects. All right, so I think we've got a couple more minutes. I think we'll blast through another question real quick, and then we'll get to Q&A, which I think will be really interesting. So this is, don't worry if you don't have something off the top of your head. It's sort of, I guess, a harder question. But basically, I would like you to think of an example of an interesting use case for data science in the industry that is kind of retrospectively inconceivable, right? So we totally weren't able to do this not that long ago. So I'd love to hear an example that you may have found that you should implement, or just something that has been changed in banking due to data science that we couldn't have done before.
I can start here. So again, as we mentioned, where we touched upon transactions. So transactions is literally like something that wasn't really possible in the past, and now you can get so many insights out of transactions that and it's so super helpful. So for example, let's talk about like this pandemic situation that we've been going through. So what you can do is, like, for example, if you look at like grocery spend, if you look at like the spend at gas stores, if you look at spend at like, for example, entertainment related industries. So based on transactions, you can do so much of the forecasting and understanding that what the customer is actually going through, or the business that you're supporting, what they're going through. That wasn't possible in the past, because, like, again, that was because sheer volume of transactions. Like when you're getting like millions of transactions in a day, like how would you expect to process that, right? And then as Dhruv mentioned, that like if you start doing something that's not really like real time, and you end up taking like a couple of days to process those transactions, like the lag that you've caused, you will have like a couple million more transactions by that time, right? So transactions is literally one of those things that were inconceivable to process in the past, that we are very like we are processing them like every day now. So that's one thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the big one, right? Is there's all kinds of time series analysis at the transactional level that we can do now due to more powerful machines, better techniques. But even something like customer segmentation, even if you were looking at the data and trying to do an analysis of it, maybe you would take 3 months of data, aggregate it all, so that you had a manageable data set and process that. But now, what we can do is look at every single transaction, create a shape of like what your transaction pattern is and analyze that, right? We have a lot more detail, right? Because you could have two people that maybe in the span of 3 months on their credit card end up spending around $5,000 across 3 months and do around 100 transactions. But the way in which they do those transactions is completely different. And that's something that they would have shown up as being part of the same segment previously, but now they would show up as being two totally different people who need two totally different products.
I think I'm going to third the transaction. The example I can think of is it's a product by RBC, which is a product that I actually am using on daily basis through the RBC app. It's called Know Me. I don't know if you've heard of it. I think RBC released it back in 2017. And the idea behind it is that it analyzes transactional data for the clients, and then it tries to learn your trending, your spending habits, and if there are any transactions that are out of norm or unexpected, then it will give you a warning. And recently, they've added a feature that actually tries to save money without you knowing. So it will look through your spending habits, and then it will look for a specific amount of money that you will not notice if it's saved away. And all of that is happening, again, using machine learning from transactional features. And I've actually used it to budget my vacations for the past few years. So it's great.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's great. I wanted to follow up that question a little bit here. Just knowing the things that couldn't have been accomplished without data science in banking. What would you say is the most influential, or I guess what technology was the key to accomplishing those things, or going forward, even if you had some idea of a technology that would really push banking forward in terms of data science? I'd love to know.
So, okay, I can start. So again, it's more of like, instead of like, I won't talk about like technology, but again, based on these transactions, like one thing that we've been working on, and like this, it's basically like helping customers like that are going through like different life moments. So that is something that that's like probably like it's happening these days as well, but not at that scale that it's possible at. So this is something that that we are also working on, and yeah, there's a lot of literature out there based on this, that how can you help customers that are going through like specific periods in their life, and like again recommend them more relevant advice, relevant offers, and then just provide them, rather than like directing them to do something, just offer them some advice, so you can inform the customer, as Fuad was saying, that you can help them like save some money. So that's another thing that you can do off transactions. So that's something that's coming, and that would increase every other day, I guess.
Sure.
So I guess I can take the thing of a specific technology, which is the utilization of GPUs for doing ML, right? Basically, we had a lot of theory for 40, 50 years that we were really not able to put into practice until around 2012. And, if you look at the term data science or even machine learning, you can see just an explosion through 2012 to 2014 of it just becoming an extremely popular word, field, and I think that a lot of people definitely point to AlexNet as the big start for data science as a field. Of course, it definitely existed before that, but I think that was a real point where it became clear, just how powerful it was going to be, and our hardware had caught up to our software, or our theory of software.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So it's definitely something that you would say corresponds with data science's growth in general. Data science growth within banking is related to that. Okay, so I think from here, and unless you have anything to contribute there, Fuad.
No, I agree with both. I don't have anything else to add.
Okay, great. So we have some questions that have come in so far. I think we'll get into our Q&A now. I will encourage anybody listening to throw in some more questions if you haven't already. Looks like we have a few backed up here, so I'm just going to pick one sort of at random here and ask our panelists. So I think I'm liking this question. So basically, we have one that says, "What is next for data science in financial services in the next couple of years, and what should banks be focused on in the near future?"
I can start that one. One component I feel would be training and education. That's a big component of for the banks, is to kind of educate everyone about data science, how AI works, really simplifying the complex concepts in AI, and also transforming into this new world of coding, whether it's Python or R, moving, I guess, away from traditional type of analysis or data analytics using Excel and regular SQL. I feel there's going to be a lot of training heavy on using cloud-based services, possibly, and Python. So that's definitely a focus for banks.
And I will agree with what Fuad is pointing out towards the training aspect, because you see, like although we are using data science and machine learning, but there is like that culture that needs to be developed among customers. So we have to be very transparent with the customers, and that's like one of the most important thing, I guess, because you see, we're just talking about like bias and privacy and all those things. So it's really important to educate the customers and being transparent and respectful to them, and just telling them, okay, that these are the things that can be done, and this is how we are doing it, right? Rather than like doing something like at the back and then like that exploding through the media. It's really important that we educate the customers that how are we using your data, and then eventually it's for their advantage. So for example, if somebody asks for my data, or like if an institution is using my data and then eventually providing me with a product that's helping me at the end of the day, like I would accept that, right? And I'm sure like it's more about like telling the customers and educating them. So I would second what Fuad is saying.
Yeah, I think that those are both really great points, and not too much to add from my side. Stephen, I do see your question. I think we can take that offline and talk about it afterwards. I don't seem to be able to respond in the questions chat. So yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say the same. I just don't want anyone to think we're ignoring that we don't have the ability to respond in the actual question chat or question prompt. So we'll get back to you if we can. We also are unable to kind of see your contact information in the questions. So anyway, thank you for contributing there. I think that makes a lot of sense. That certainly has been a priority at past companies I've been at, where we're trying to sort of build the data literacy of the organization, right? Because data is obviously just becoming a bigger and bigger part of everyone's life, and in banking it is really accelerating. So I'm looking through the questions right now.
I want to address one question, and that relates to like getting into the field as well. Like that was it was the first question. So what's the hardest challenge that you face in data science? And I'm sure people know it generally, and especially the people who are working with it, but although they mention it a lot, but I want to reiterate that data is the most like it's the biggest challenge that we face in data science, getting like the right data, the data that is usable. And frankly, like when somebody is entering data science field, or as an observer, you think that the most of our part of our job is like working with algorithms and doing like very snazzy things, which is actually not the case. Like 75-80% of the time, we are just thinking about how to get right data, or like the data that we have, how to make it right. So that's like the hardest challenge, and it continues to be like hard. Like it's not getting any easy with all the new kind of data sources that we are getting hands on, because like it's really difficult, because like it's like garbage in, garbage out. So if you don't process the data properly, if you don't align it properly, you won't get what you want to.
I think that's super important what you said, Zain, especially about the thinking process. That is something I think people don't realize is part of the process, right? You get a data problem and then you just start coding. Of course, the thought process around it, I think, is where the science really comes into data science. All right. Anything to add for our other participants as far as the hardest challenge that you face?
I think one of the challenges that we face is, so at least for us, our team operates very much like a research team. We actually have a collaboration with the University of Alberta. So there's actually a mix of data scientists from ATB and students from the University of Alberta on the team. And one of the challenges that we definitely face is pressure from the business in terms of timelines, in terms of like, basically in a lot of other software development, you can have a much better idea of when your product will be ready. Whereas because we take like quite a hardcore research approach to our development, you know, we are fine with doing an experiment and not getting a valuable result, or not getting a result that answers the question, because it's generally still valuable. It's still taught us something. And, you know, if the data that you've got is not separable along the lines that you're looking, then that's just how it is, right? And it means you need to go back to the drawing board and change something. But I do think that, you know, from a business perspective, that can be a little bit difficult for a business to deal with, that there is so much iteration required, so much uncertainty in how long it will take to develop a product that actually solves the question that you're trying to answer, right? You know, you can definitely take the shortcut of answering a different question and trying to convince people that you've answered their question, but sometimes I think one of the hardest challenges is kind of riding that line of, do we need to answer an easier question, or do we need to spend more time answering this hard question?
Yeah. Just to add one more thing to Dourav's observation, that it's really important to have like business on your side, because like if business is not on your side, it could like, you could be like you can do one project, two project, but eventually like if you're not creating business impact, it won't go, you won't go long, right? And far. Then like whoever is working in the industry, they realize this, that like business has to be like a strong partner.
For sure. And having some domain knowledge and understanding the business behind what you're developing is definitely helpful. Like working with business strategy, it's definitely helpful because just like you mentioned, if you're not if the business is not benefiting from the models, then there is no point in developing these models and deploying them. At the end of the day, it is serving the business. So you have to have a good understanding, good relationship, good communication with business in order to do that.
Yeah, that's a great point, and thanks for saying that. That kind of leads us right up into another question that was posed a few minutes ago, and I think it's a good segue. So the question is as follows: banking/finance is a very traditional industry. Do you find issues in getting internal stakeholders on board with more advanced ML implementations? If so, how do you overcome those issues?
Yeah, that's like so. I'm sure like whoever asked this question is from the banking industry. Anyways, yeah, that's so true. And again, like that's where like the storytelling feature of a data scientist comes
Yeah.
in, that it's really important that you narrate whatever you're trying to do. You transparent, you have to be transparent again, and you narrate what your thought process is in order to make them comfortable. Because you see, like for example, like you have some water in a bowl, and somebody wants you to touch it. You want to make sure that it's not like dangerous for you, right? So you will just like touch it like unknowingly. So it's like very similar thing for business. So if you explain them properly, if you share your thought process and then what your end objective is, I'm sure they get on board. So because like this is like change management and all of these issues are like really there in when we pose new projects. But yeah, that's the way to handle them, I guess.
Yeah. In addition to that, I think one of the best things you can do is show your value with low hanging fruit type of projects. So, and at the end of the day, banking, I think, is very much a relationships based industry. So, fairly recently, I worked on a project where there was really not much data science involved. It was much more of a data architecture project, helping a team set up their schemas for their databases, helping them basically migrate an existing solution from one platform to another. And yeah, so while it didn't have any data science, we were happy to help them because we were able to build a relationship with them, show that we knew what we were talking about. And as we were doing that project, we kind of talked them through how, with this data, what you could do from a data science perspective, how would this improve their team? And now that's actually led into that team investing heavily into data science. And so the way it works in ATB is that the AI team sits orthogonal to the business. So the business is able to draw upon on the data science team, and now that's one of our strongest relationships that we have within the business, and they're investing into us heavily. So it's at the end of the day, whether you're a data scientist or you're anyone else in the business, it is about relationships, and you have to do things in that traditional banking finance way.
I definitely agree with the storytelling part and just being a good communicator. No matter how advanced and complex your machine learning or algorithm is, you have to find a way to break it down and have different versions to different audience, and be able to deliver it in a good manner. Also, in addition to that, also goes back to education and training. So I've been fortunate to be involved in training initiatives within RBC to train other employees and tell them about AI and how it works in machine learning. So that definitely kind of helps everyone understand and get an appreciation. And also having leaders that have a vision, right, and faith in that AI can actually help the business. That definitely helps.
So true.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, you want to build those relationships, and I think in general, as data literacy increases across organizations, then it's going to be a little bit of an easier sell for people in your position, and I think that's something to look forward for people. So I think we're winding down here. Just probably time for one more question. I'm seeing that a lot of people on the call, they kind of seem like they're aspiring data scientists or trying to get into the field. And I see a lot of questions on how do I get there, right? What do I do? So I'd love to hear your point of view, just to address those, on how you can get into data science. Like, what would be the one thing you would recommend to someone trying to get into the field?
Go ahead.
Okay. So again, the most important thing is probably like thinking that like data science has no one route, right? You can like there are three people who are talking here, like in fact four, and all of them are coming through different routes. So there is no like one recipe for success. The only thing is like it depends on like from where you are coming from. And again, no matter wherever you are coming from, you should have a love for data. That's the most important thing. You should be comfortable with data. If you are not, just try to practice out like different technologies that help you handle data, like be it SQL, be it like any technologies that help you support data. So data is like probably one of the more like the most important thing. To add to it is like if you have some programming experience, that helps. It's certainly not like necessary or compulsory, but it certainly helps. So somebody who has programming experience would easier like it would be easier for them to surpass somebody who doesn't have programming experience, right? And thirdly is, as Fuad mentioned during talk, like statistics is like one of the most important thing for to work in data science. So if you have good statistics concepts, and again like it's about again getting the basics right. So I see situations where still like people who are like very advanced, who have studied stats at advanced level, but when they are like working on performance metrics, they go back and open up their books just to make sure that they're doing it right. And the fourth thing is like visualization. So if you work on these four things, I'm sure you are covering all the bases.
I definitely have to agree with Zain regarding the coding and statistics. I think these are the two. If you're planning to start in data science, I would definitely start with these two: the coding and statistics. Coding, it could be any language that you want, as long as you know the fundamentals of coding, and statistics, definitely helpful. These two things. Also, work on projects. Go to Kaggle, go crazy, download a data set, work on any project, because learning happens when you work on projects, not through courses. You face a challenge, you ask questions, you go and you try to answer these questions in your specific project. And those can be side projects. They don't have to be elaborate. They don't have to be big. As long as you work on something on your own from beginning to end, post it on GitHub, post it on a blog post. That will elevate your profile for sure. And the last thing I would say is attend as many talks and events as you can if you're trying to get into the field, because that gives you a sense of what companies are doing, what companies are suitable for you, what fields are good for you. And it's a great networking opportunity, because at the end of the day, networking definitely helps get or land a position.
Yeah, and then finally, what I would add, which is something that Fuad actually brought up earlier, is some degree of domain expertise goes a long way. It really, if you can understand the problems, in this case, that a bank is likely to face, that it makes it a lot easier to try to solve them, and it gets you a lot more buy-in from the stakeholders that are maybe less familiar with data science. Because again, I don't want to generalize my experience to everyone's, but at least for me, I was hired when I was interviewing. I was interviewed by a data scientist and a banking specialist. So, in that sense, it was important for me to be able to communicate my data science knowledge to the data scientist, but also my banking knowledge, because it just has a big impact. It makes it a lot easier to build rapport with the business and understand their perspectives.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for your input there. All really important topics. And if I could add one thing, I would just say, for anyone looking to get into the field, don't get discouraged by what you may think the cookie cutter data scientist looks like. Of course, sometimes you go to one site and it's like, you need a PhD in this or a master's degree in that. Don't get discouraged with all that. Just follow the main things we covered here, and work at them and practice, and anybody could get there. So I guess I will kind of leave it at that. I just want to thank everybody every participant we have on the call right now, as well as our panelists, Zain, Dhruv, and Fuad. Awesome to have you guys. It's been an absolute pleasure. I think I learned a lot. I hope everybody else learned a lot. And yeah, so
thank you so much.
Thank you
for having us.
Yes, much appreciated. This was really fun.
Awesome. Well, it was good to see you guys, and hope we can connect in the future.
For sure.
For sure.
Take care.
Yeah, have a good weekend. Bye.
All right.